it is real pleasure and such an honor to have our next guest joining us all the way from US live. She's Senior Vice President of Corporate Marketing and Communications, Chief External Affairs Officer for NCR, a Fortune 500 software company employing 34,000 people globally. Marija Živanović-Smith, welcome at the 4th AFA Women Leadership Summit.
Dobar dan, jel me čujete? Hello? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Knowing your impressive career, I cannot start this conversation with but asking you a very personal question. As a very experienced woman in tech industry, what are the challenges you faced along the way, and what would be your advice for women on how to become leaders?
Oh, thank you for the question, and thank you for allowing me to begin on a personal note. Let's start by offering a little bit of my background because I think it also describes some of the challenges I faced along the way, and then maybe I'll dig deeper into the workplace challenges. But as you know, I grew up in Belgrade and spent first 19 years of my life in Belgrade, Serbia. And this was during difficult times, during financial, economic, and instability in Serbia. And growing up, I watched my mom, a single mom, balance work, family, our finances. And this was the time when everyone in the country, I think, faced difficulties, whether that was no access to savings, no access to financial means or established credit. And it was quite a vulnerable place for pretty much everybody, not just me. And I remember leaving Serbia when I was 19 with a suitcase and some big dreams. And the truth is, honestly, that I really wouldn't be where I am today without the persistence and the challenges that I faced along the way, and the determination and a whole lot of hard work. And I wouldn't change a thing. I actually embrace all of it because it really has shaped me in so many ways as a mom, as a person, and as a leader at work and in my community. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned is that I faced almost every challenge as an opportunity. So starting with my first job, one of my first jobs out of school at IBM in global government programs and in international trade, I was very, very lucky that I started in such a great company. And these formative roles, these earlier roles are, I think, quite important because you will get exposed, hopefully, to some good opportunities to learn from great leaders. And I realized early on that what set me apart in such a big enterprise, it's very difficult to set yourself apart. And I realized that I was able to set myself apart by taking on projects that others saw as mission impossible and turned them into something attractive. So whether that was a missing process in trade compliance, such as Section 337 exclusion orders, nothing really exciting, nothing great. Nobody looks at that on my resume today, but that's honestly where I started, trade compliance. And I established new practices, and those practices drove results. And that's how some of the leadership noticed me, and I was able to then move on to another opportunity in establishing a new practice with corporate strategy around growing new organic growth for IBM around regulated industries. So I found a way to distinguish myself despite my youth, despite lack of experience, by detecting opportunities to solve problems and building good outcomes and being very collaborative. So from that early opportunity in government programs, in external affairs, in corporate strategy, I was very fortunate because IBM would move you every 18 to 24 months into a new role. And it was a great place to start the career. And then I moved on into a startup. And that was a challenge and an opportunity as well. what I learned in the context of a startup after almost a decade in IBM. First and foremost, I learned how to dress down. That was funny. After a month of me showing up in suits, they told me I needed to learn how to put on some jeans and relax. So it was interesting. It was very interesting cultural differences, right? And then I also learned that it was wonderful to be in a startup because you learn, you have less resources. Everything is a lot more challenging. No one knows you. You're not showing up with a big brand name. But I also learned that maybe in next time around, I would join a startup as a founder, right? So where I would have more leverage to make decisions and drive the mission of the company. So one of the largest, I think, both challenges and opportunities came my way around 13 years ago. And that's when NCR was looking to establish its public affairs office and build it from the ground up. And my first 5 years in NCR were basically massive personal and professional growth, I would say, because not only was I having to build something from scratch, find talent, find resources, convince people to give me resources, but I also had to find quick wins to prove myself. And I had some incredible opportunities that came my way to work on a moving of a global corporate headquarters of at that time, 125-year-old company from Dayton to Atlanta, and reestablish its culture and its presence, to negotiate investment around the world, whether that was in Malaysia or Brazil or in Serbia, and establish international footprint for the company, to resolving pension deficit issues on a legislative level inside the United States. At that time, the pension fund was bigger than the company, and it was a significant obstacle to the execution of the company's transformation mission. So all of those things came my way. And to be very honest with you, I didn't have a lot of experience in pensions, right? But once again, going back to the core of self-discovery and applying that attitude towards taking on challenges that others thought were mission impossible and finding a way to solve them, not giving up by building coalitions of the willing people who are interested in the same mission. That was sort of at the core of my success. And along the way, to be very honest, there were other challenges that I think women talk about oftentimes today, whether that's being the youngest woman in the room, majority of my career, and sometimes the only woman in the room. In both technology and energy sectors, they're male-dominated sectors. And so I had to be comfortable to be in an quote-unquote somewhat unfriendly environment, what appeared or felt at times as an unfriendly environment, and where men spoke freely and voiced their opinions. And I had to find my voice and to have confidence that when I said something, even if it was not necessarily noted, even if people passed on and dismissed the comment, I would find the confidence to repeat it again. Maybe not the same day, maybe the next day. So, and not to give up. So I would say that those are some of the common challenges that you face in any career. This is not unique to me. And as you grow in your career, not necessarily through ranks or entitled, but as you grow, I think you will, people will, women especially in the workplace, will face them. Few other examples were, I think, more specific to a female immigrant, perhaps. Today, these examples are known and there's so much text out there about it. It's called microaggressions at work. They're verbal or behavioral or environmental indignities. Oftentimes they communicate something derogatory or a negative attitude. And in most cases, people are not necessarily aware that they're doing it. It's an unconscious bias. So I'll give you a couple of examples that I often share and when I teach either women on my team on how to handle them or my daughters. Wow, you look so young to be doing this job. number one example of a challenge often faced. Or, wow, your English is so good. You speak English so well for an immigrant. All right, that's another one. I've heard it many times. Or, how are you able to be a mom and do your job? You can't possibly do both well. Three most common challenges, I think, for women in the workplace, among many others. But to close on the question, what's most important is, yes, it's important to know how to handle these things. But what's more important is really not to dwell in them and not to get caught up in the challenges, but to really focus your energy on the opportunity, right? And find a way to distinguish yourself, whether that's through your strong desire to learn and be an ongoing learner and always learn something new and have that mindset always, whether that's through your ability to be a team player, to collaborate with others. Because when you do, people will remember that. People remember kindness and they will be there for you. Or whether that's your ability to be a change agent, because change agents are hard to not notice, and serve others, right? Be a servant leader. So that would be my answer to some of the personal challenges question.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing this personal perspective. It is really inspiring, and thank you for personal details and the details of your professional background. We just heard before you a McKinsey Global Institute report creator that actually says that between 40 and 160 million women globally will need to transition occupations at some point between now and 2030. So in the age of automation, and especially now looking towards a post-COVID world, how do you as a global female leader see the role of women in the workforce and in creating the future?
I mean, that's an excellent question. And I'm going to approach it first from the perspective of in addition to my daily job, I'm not sure that I also mentioned that I lead and have been leading our global pandemic task force for NCR since February of this year. And I thought that the McKinsey perspective was excellent and very timely and needed. And here's why. Not only should we worry ourselves about the occupational transitions that will need to occur in the next couple of decades, but there is a more immediate concern that I've been thinking about, especially in the last 6 months, how this pandemic is actually affecting women in the workplace right now. There have been recent reports, especially in the United States. I'm not sure if there are reports in Europe as well, but the rate at which women are leaving workplace, professional career women leaving the workforce, is alarming. It's 4 times that of men in the United States. And I'm not sure that we've seen stats like that in a very long time. Why is this concerning? On top of the occupational shifts that we will have to make due to automation or technological development? Well, because not only when a woman leaves a workplace, it's not only an impact to that woman and her career trajectory and her personal finance, it's also an impact to the family. It's also impact to the business, right? Because business is losing that talent. I'll give you a personal example here so that we can start thinking about that issue in the context of the larger one. There's a friend of mine is teaching nursing PhD courses, and that's a predominantly female dominated field. One of her best students is a nurse who in August of this year, a nurse who has a tremendous experience, in August of this year had to leave her job. The story is classic. 2 kids that have to be homeschooled now because of the pandemic, and her husband had a bigger job, was making more money, so they decided that he would stay employed and she would leave her job. And even though she's doing great in her PhD class and she's advancing her learning, let's think about what she's losing in these year or 2 years or how long she stays without practical experience. She will not have the clinical experience working as a nurse during the pandemic. latest hands-on knowledge for treatments over the past year, right? Hands-on knowledge of the technology that will be deployed to share knowledge maybe around the world about the pandemic or medical outcomes. And you may not think of nursing as high tech or highly tech influenced, but it actually is. Medical field is significantly influenced by technology and technology advancements. And so for her to have practical examples from every day at work, to share that in interviews, whether she decides to go back to nursing or to teach, that's key. So what will it take for her to catch up with that, plus the speed of technology? It will take intention, a lot of intention. So focus on gaining practical knowledge while also developing skills in school, right? Or through informal learning, and apply this story to any profession, right? All of us will have to be a lot more intentional about building our skill sets to find career paths in the next 10 to 20 years. It's not just the gap in employment, all right? It's whether we are gaining and learning and keeping up with the latest technological trends. And so, for instance, since I am already in the tech field, I'll give you an example, what I'm being intentional about and how I'm looking to position my skill set for the future. I'm already in tech, right? And I'm already looking at anything digital and data. I wouldn't be doing my job as the CMO and Chief External Affairs Officer well if I was not looking at all things digital and building up my digital skill set. But there's another area where I'm actually being intentional. I'm focusing my learning as an executive on building sustainable and inclusive businesses and business models. There is an increasing body of knowledge around business sustainability versus short-term profits, coming from the very top of the investment community. Even if you go back to a year ago, Larry Fink, who's the CEO of BlackRock, has published a public letter to all of the companies in their investment portfolio, and has asked them to start thinking about sustainable and inclusive business models, as the investors are looking to reallocate significant capital into sustainable business. What does it really mean? Who defines what a sustainable business is? Does it have to do only with environment, or does it have to do with how you actually create, whether it's a technology or product? Are there unintended consequences of your product? Is that ever considered, or is it just about a short-term profit? So I think companies that find long-term purpose-driven economic imperatives will do well. And I'm personally going to spend time building up my skills on developing or advising or helping companies do that. And I actually think women in general have a significant opportunity to participate in that next generation, the next frontier of sustainable business.
Thank you for pointing out that example from healthcare, because we all agree and we are aware that health industry is going to be one of those primarily affected, a number of women losing or transitioning their jobs. And thank you also for putting together sustainable and inclusive when it comes to investments into businesses. This is something we in AFA are very committed in our projects. Speaking about this topic, it is very important to say that automation will, of course, create new jobs, many of them traditionally in male-dominant fields. The composition of potential job losses and gains for men and women could be different, both with automation and again with the impact of COVID. We've already seen this year an impact on service-oriented occupations, for instance. So from your perspective, what are the risks that women are up against in the workforce looking at the automation and the state of economy in 2021 and beyond?
Okay. I'll address this question with a two-part answer. And just to set context first, let me speak about my personal experience as a leader in marketing and communications. So I have a team of anywhere between, if I count the indirect employees, probably around 300 people around the world in marketing communications, and I've led teams as large as 500-600 people worldwide. And in our space, in marketing and communications, we have long understood the importance of automation, to be honest with you, and digitization. It's been probably 7 to 10 years that we have been paying attention to how digitization, data, automation, AI, new tools will affect every single role in our field. Maybe starting 7 years ago, I became very intentional hiring new skill sets for this change. So let me tell you what that means. That means that 7 years ago, I no longer hired only people who can write a press release. I no longer hired a person that just does events. I still wanted them to have expertise in events or a really good ability to write a press release. But my hiring practices drastically shifted towards people who had 2 key words on their resumes, as well as proven experience, digital and data. People who were able, or women, so 60% of my team are women, and I'm very proud of that. Women and people, men, who can run digital influence campaigns, who can prove to me that they can think about content strategy and gain digital attention in the world of everything digital. People who devise content strategy and generate emotion with a targeted audience, that they can translate that emotion with good use of data and analytics into a high conversion funnel. People who know where to find digital traffic on a specific topic. People who have deep understanding of Google Analytics, Adobe developers, search engine optimization analysts, and so on and so forth. So this move was intentional in my field, and it was very critical and visible. And let me tell you when it actually came really handy. When the pandemic hit this year, everyone in my field was struggling to shift their practices from traditional marketing, because all events stopped, as you know, from traditional marketing practices and the meeting in person and handshakes to virtual, right? And my team was prepared. I'm very, very proud of them. And almost overnight, they shifted to virtual events, virtual customer visits, content hubs, internal content hub building for employees to keep employees engaged, external content hubs to keep customers engaged on the topics of most relevance to them. Our restaurants had to learn how to become digital overnight. Retailers had to learn how to become multi-channel retailers overnight. Banks had to learn how to operate outside of the branch overnight and deploy digital banking solutions if they didn't have them. So we were prepared to discuss those topics with confidence, with authority, and to engage our audiences. And the skills that we hired for came in very handy. So this now applies not just to marketing, traditional marketing and public relations, even media, the team, media relations team, analyst relations, government relations are expected to not just be good at developing strategic relationships. I expect them to actually have deep understanding of how media or government officials or analysts are swayed by digital influence campaigns, and how to execute a digital influence campaign when you cannot meet a person in person, right? So currently, and in the last couple of years, we have women on my team who are deploying chatbots. They're designed chatbots across marketing and services channels for the company to support the content hubs. And I'm continuing to look for that skill set, deep digital understanding, multivariant campaigns, deep data science. So not just reports and analytics, but truly telling the story around the data that we get. And marketing is a science nowadays. It's all about data. right? It's all about data and the insight that you get around the emotion from your audience. So last month's report on marketing program performance is no longer relevant. You really have to know where your audience is now in the moment so that you can be relevant and speak their language at that time. So what are some of the risks? So now that I told you what I'm hiring for and how I've shifted the skills to look into the future, what are some of the risks? Well, on top of this, the women, getting a setback from the pandemic and leaving the workforce, and I do think that this will set us back a little bit. The biggest risk that I think, Svetlana, is not being open or aware of the change that's ahead. If you're not aware that you actually have to go and acquire these skills, if you think that something you've learned in school or at the university, something that worked for you for the last 10 years will work for you for the next 10, that will create a problem. So awareness is number one. So thank you, and thanks to the organization for actually driving this dialogue and raising awareness. And then I would say from personal experience, some large risks to women are not developing the following skill sets that are must have if you want to grow in business. First and foremost, resiliency. Okay, if you want to grow in traditional corporate environment, and if you want to grow in terms of the corporate ladder, the number one skill, in my opinion, is resiliency. Never giving up, always coming through and having grit to meet the circumstances, no matter what they are, right? It's not necessarily like failure. It has a lot to teach people, and as someone who was always chasing A's and outstanding performance, I was afraid of failure, to be honest. But the moment you fail is the first moment you learn resilience. And so I think that's a very important skill. And if you don't build it, that's a risk. Okay. Number two biggest risk is lacking business acumen. For women who desire to be in corporate environment, not understanding P&L, profit and loss, how business measures its success, how key stakeholders measure its success, is the number two most important skill set in the business world. You do not want to find yourself entering a very big boardroom in a very important meeting. You made it there, you got promoted, and then you cannot participate in the conversation around P&L, right? That's not a situation you want to be in. So I would say if you are going to be in business, on top of adding your data, digital, AI skills, data science skills, if you're going to enter a corporate world, getting a lesson or two in P&L would be very important. And last area that is a big risk, I think, for anyone, and an area where women excel actually, and we can make it our advantage, is our ability to listen and listen with compassion. The more the world gets automated, the less compassion, I think. And the best leaders not only know their stuff, but listen to their people really well. And yes, leaders make decisions. Yes, leaders lead in uncertainty. But leaders also know how to make people feel included. And there's nothing better than good listening skills. So I kind of flipped it around a bit and said, yes, the biggest risks are if you don't develop these skill sets.
Great. So speaking about the workforce for the 21st century, can we define what are the crucial expertise in terms of competencies and education and skills? What would you pick as the most important for this future times?
So again, I would say that I would just repeat, maybe just in a shorter way. Number one, and I'll speak for my field, I'm not aware of the other fields. Number one, anything that has to do with digital skill sets. So in the field of marketing communications, and external affairs in any of those departments or fields, if you are not digitally savvy, if you don't understand digital marketing, whether that's how to build an influence campaign or how to find digital traffic or how to understand search engine optimization or how to do Adobe platform development and so on and so forth. If you do not understand social media and how to use it to influence, you will not necessarily succeed in marketing or communications in the next 10 years. So for my field, very specific answer. For the rest, I would say those skills that I just mentioned, having business acumen on top of your profession and on top of what you've learned in school, building resiliency and ability to communicate effectively and simply, I think will help us stand out on top of the IT skill set. I'm not saying that every single woman has to consider STEM. I would love for more and more women to consider STEM and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. But the STEM degree by itself, I'm not sure that will be enough. I hope that answers.
Thank you for pointing out again that all sets of digital skills. So in order to stay competitive workforce for the 21st century and to be able to participate in this future tech society that we're all discussing here today, women will really need to adopt basic digital literacy skills. So why are we pointing out these basic digital literacy skills? So what you just explained, that you were in a position 7 years ago to look for us, it would be really a challenge nowadays, because in Serbia, for example, we have 54% of women who are basically digitally illiterate. Worldwide, half of women are not connected to the internet. So how important is actually basic digital literacy in the age of automation? Putting it into Serbian context, of course, from your context, it's already obvious.
I think it's critical. I think it's absolutely critical. And I actually think at some point in time it should be basic education. Digital literacy, I'm not sure why it's not yet in many places, but it should become the core curriculum. And once again, I hate to bring back this year and the pandemic, but I have to, because I'm not sure if you're aware that UN just estimated that over 1 billion learners have been affected by the closure of schools. 1 billion. And you can assume that many of them are girls. So in addition to this learning loss, girls are already disadvantaged because of the digital illiteracy in many places, whether that's due to poverty or child labor or household work, a variety of reasons, right? I believe that digital literacy is key to unlocking future potential. Here's why. It's been proven, whether it's in Asia or Latin America, places that have been tackling the digital divide for decades, that the literacy skills, digital literacy skills, offer women especially opportunities to leapfrog, right? To get empowered. Whether that's access to internet or e-commerce digital platforms, having a mobile phone, having access to digital financial services like microfinancing, give women the possibility to earn, right? Many women have taken their craft, whatever craft that might be, a trade skill, and by having a mobile phone and an access to an e-commerce platform like Polzi in Mexico, they're able to earn money by selling something on an e-commerce platform and sustain their family. And this has been proven to be critical in places where you have a lot of poverty, increasing employment opportunities without formal education, right? And just general access to knowledge, to information. So I think that governments actually have a significant role, states and economies have a significant role to play in raising awareness and promoting digital literacy for women. There's an opportunity and there's a whole body of research out there. I used to serve as the US business rep to APAC, and we spent a significant amount of time on digital literacy and women across APEC 20 economies. And there's a significant opportunity for governments to actually actively aim through policy to close digital access gap, digital adoption gaps, to improve affordability. So for instance, a couple of things that economies could consider. They can, for instance, we know that some people don't like targets, but targets work, right? When I look to hire inclusive or diverse workforce, I talk to my recruiter and I let them know that I would like my workforce to be 50% diverse, women, minorities, right? And then we have a target. Maybe we don't meet that target every year, but as long as we have a target, we have something to measure ourselves against. So national digital literacy strategies, I believe, should include targets, numbers, and dates. For instance, how do we extend networks and digital access to women to rural areas? Or how do we promote access and affordability, especially for low income? How do you make smartphones, tablets, and other devices more available to those who have low income? How do you promote e-banking skills? How do you train e-banking and mobile money skills so that women can participate in the digital economy from their home once they have a phone? How do you teach them about online safety and cybercrime so they're not vulnerable once they join? And this is not just for the developing economies. The G20 economies have a significant opportunity in this space as well. So for instance, they can, when it comes to STEM and digital literacy, there's an opportunity to establish targets for women in STEM. I'm not sure that every nation has an actual target for women in STEM, and promoting women, not just having digital literacy skill, but joining STEM fields. We could do a better job at establishing funds and grant schemes to enhance the enrollment, right, of women in STEM. We could do a better job at awarding and recognizing the visibility of women in STEM fields. All of you have probably noticed the Nobel Prize winners for the first time ever in chemistry. I think every female organization is celebrating it on social media channels. There's no reason why governments shouldn't award and celebrate those accomplishments. So there's so many opportunities here for the leaders at the state level to actually promote both digital literacy and STEM, to be very, very targeted, specific, and to fund, right? To put their money where their mouth is. And so technology will continue to develop. It won't stop. And the access to the latest technology should not be limited by your economic opportunity or your cultural background. And we all need to work and find ways to support that cause. To that end, I'll mention two things. One, my team has developed, and this was for NCR, but we're making it available to women's organizations. We've developed a digital marketing training. And these are 5-minute videos on key topics, digital marketing 101, and then we progress. Key topics that anyone would need to learn if they want to become a digital marketing guru, okay? And so we've launched it first internally with our own employees. And I've just made it available to a women's entrepreneurship organization in Atlanta. And I would be more than happy to make it available to your organization as well, and to help women get access to free digital marketing training. In addition to that, I'm also very happy that we are part of this and that we're supporting the Female University Students Hackathon that's about to take off any minute now. So I know that we're a few minutes over, and I really wanted to extend again deep gratitude for the invitation, for giving me a platform to share my thoughts, and hopefully inspiring and encouraging a couple of women to go way further than me.
Thank you so much. It really was very inspiring and encouraging. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of young women looking to you today and listening to you. So I'm sure they will benefit from that. And thank you very much for pointing out digital literacy as a key enabler of fighting poverty, and not just poverty, but economic advancement as a society. And I could not agree more that we all have to join our forces, as you said, with government, with foreign institutions of economic development, corporate sector, and organizations of civil society as we are. So if we all do that a job together, I believe we can do it, in a real time that we're aiming for. And yeah, COVID really helped us learn that on a worse way, what are our challenges and gaps, and that great example of hands-on knowledge that you just shared with digital marketing is really something that as a quick fix helps to prove when you're ready with the skills, you're just not in a very bad position like the others. So thank you very much for sharing all these insights. We really enjoyed. Thank you for your time, and see you soon in Belgrade.
Thank you for having me. See you in Belgrade very soon.